Blackhawks homestand continues on tonight with a matchup against the Canucks. I'll go over my three keys to victory and Philipp Kurashev being healthy scratched.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Just a quick reminder off the top to please go and hit that like button, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. I'm really close to achieving my goal of 2,000 subscribers, but I won't be able to accomplish that without your help. So please make sure to go and hit that subscribe button for me. Even if you are someone who regularly listens through an audio platform, it's 100% free, will not cost you anything, and really does help me out tremendously. Got to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. If you're not already a member, go and visit FanDuel.com to get $200 worth of bonus bets by placing just $5 down with America's #1 sportsbook. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Hope everyone's Tuesday has gotten off to a lovely start. Real quick, before I get into my preview of tonight's matchup with the Vancouver Canucks, obviously got to address the elephant in the room. For those of you who are watching today's episode on YouTube, you'll notice there is no video going on, and that's because my camera has been having some issues here this morning, and I haven't quite been able to figure it out. That only left me with my standard laptop camera, which certainly does not have the best quality. So decided to just go with an overlay here today. Hopefully this will be an issue that I can solve in time for tomorrow's recap episode, where I dive into what went down tonight between the Blackhawks and the Vancouver Canucks. But did want to give you all a little bit of a heads up and apologies for not having a true video version of today's episode coming out. But Blackhawks back in action, as I mentioned, for their third game of their current 4-game homestand at the United Center. Tonight, they'll be taking on the 2-1-2 Vancouver Canucks as the Hawks look to respond well and pick up a big 2 points after kind of letting one get away from them on Saturday. A really sleepy start out of the gate, wound up making the difference in that matchup with the Sabres, along with UPL in net as well. He was absolutely fantastic. But the Blackhawks were definitely the better team in those final 40 minutes. They won the expected goal for battle by a huge margin, led in scoring chances, high danger chances, outshot Buffalo 37-22. So if the Blackhawks are able to keep that type of effort up and set that tone right from the get-go, I like their chances of bouncing back with a big win here tonight to get them back to 500. Hawks are now down to 2-3-1 through their opening 6 games after that loss to the Sabres. Would be big to get back to 500 before closing things out at the UC in their 4-game homestand on Friday night against a struggling Nashville Predators team. As far as some interesting statistics or things to be on the lookout for the Vancouver Canucks, they did drop their first 3 games of the season. They started 0-1-2. Their first 2 games on home ice both led to overtime losses. However, they have responded nicely themselves in their past 2 games. They beat the Florida Panthers 3-2 last Thursday, and then in their lone game over the weekend on Saturday as well, blanked the Philadelphia Flyers 3-0. So started to get it going here a little bit after a bit of a sluggish start. As far as their leading point scorer, it hasn't been the offense lighting the world on fire for Vancouver, kind of like everyone expected. Brock Boeser is actually their only player who's at a point-per-game margin through their opening 5 with 5 points, but they have been really solid as a team defensively. Ever since allowing 6 goals in a 6-5 overtime loss to Calgary in their season opener, they've held every opponent to 4 goals or fewer since then, and now we're just allowing 2.8 goals per game, which is good for 9th in the NHL. So a solid defensive bunch, definitely something to keep an eye on for the Canucks, definitely something the Blackhawks need to note. And also, I would imagine Kevin Lankinen, Blackhawks legend Kevin Lankinen, gets the start in between the pipes tonight in his return to the United Center, has spent the last couple of years after departing the Blackhawks organization serving as the Nashville Predators back up behind UC Saros, but because of injury, he's been the guy early on here for Vancouver. I believe he was the one who pitched the shutout against the Flyers on Saturday. So, yeah, would expect Kevin Lankinen to get the go here tonight. A familiar foe in between the pipes on the other side of the ice. As far as what we can expect to see out of the Blackhawks lineup, I am currently recording this at 8:03 a.m. Central Time, so well before the Blackhawks morning skate. That's still a couple of hours away. However, Luke Richardson tipped his hand a little bit at practice down at Fifth Third Arena yesterday, and looks like the lineup is going to be jumbled up a little bit. Top line is going to remain the same with Nick Foligno, Connor Bedard, and Teuvo Teravainen. Second line is where we're going to see a change, though, as it's not Philipp Kurashev centering Taylor Hall and Tyler Bertuzzi. It's actually Andreas Athanasiou. And then the third line, Ilya Mikheyev, Jason Dickinson, and Tyler Anderson, the shutdown trio that has been one of the best lines in the entire NHL this year. No need for Luke Richardson to go and mix things up there. And then rounding things out on the fourth line, Pat Maroon, Lukas Reichel back at center, Craig Smith at the right wing spot, with Philipp Kurashev and Ryan Donato as the two healthy scratches. On the back end, Alex Vlasic and Seth Jones, Wyatt Kaiser, and Connor Murphy, who's been bumped up from the third pairing to the second pairing, while TJ Brody, a little bit of a demotion down on the third pairing now with Nolan Allen. Isaac Phillips still appears to be the healthy scratch. A lot of takeaways here from the changes that Luke Richardson appears to be making for tonight's game. First and foremost, though, why are we scratching Philipp Kurashev? And I understand through the first 6 games, the production hasn't been there for Kurashev, right? He's only got 1 point. That second line, even though I do think they've cycled the puck well, and I've pointed that out on most shows, they haven't been able to get the finished product. However, I don't understand what the mentality is here behind scratching Philipp Kurashev in particular. And it's okay to go and tell him he needs to be better and let him know that he needs to provide more. And for Richardson to communicate that he hasn't been super happy with the way that Philipp Kurashev has been producing. But to healthy scratch him out of all the people in this lineup is absolutely mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. And it feels like it's a message of offense and defense, potentially, the way that Kurashev goes about his business. I just don't really understand this decision whatsoever, particularly when the Blackhawks really need secondary scoring. I don't think Philipp Kurashev has been the problem. If anything, he's not really in the best position for him, I feel like, to succeed, even though he is with Taylor Hall, Tyler Bertuzzi, two good line mates. I don't think Philipp Kurashev is a center. And usually with Luke Richardson's centers, the way he goes about things, he really likes to have them defensive-minded. It's why he loves Jason Dickinson, probably his favorite player on the team. It's because Luke Richardson is a defensive-minded guy. That's not Philipp Kurashev's game. It's the same story with Lukas Reichel. Those aren't their games. Luke Richardson's style that he wants to play isn't the style that Philipp Kurashev and Lukas Reichel want to play with, and it feels like when they don't, Luke Richardson is punishing them. And I don't really understand that. And I love to hear that Philipp Kurashev took accountability with Richardson. He said, I know I need to be better. I will be better. But there are so many more guys in this lineup who need to be healthy scratched over Philipp Kurashev. Again, for the same reasons as Lukas Reichel. In a season where the final outcomes of these games really don't matter, Philipp Kurashev could actually be a puzzle piece. We're really going to scratch him? Man, I just don't agree with that whatsoever. And secondly, if that's the mentality that we're setting, why isn't TJ Brody getting scratched? How about Tyler Bertuzzi or Taylor Hall? Two guys who literally watched Tage Thompson skate right by them for an odd man rush for the opening goal of the game. And I know Taylor Hall and Tyler Bertuzzi aren't defensive-minded players. That's never going to be a strength of theirs, but that was still an unacceptable breakdown in my opinion. And you're going to go and scratch their center instead? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And why isn't TJ Brody getting the same treatment? He gets demoted down to the third line, sure, but maybe Luke's scared of having Kaiser, Allen, and Phillips all in the lineup. I don't know, but it can't get much worse than what TJ Brody has provided through these first 6 games. Like, if you want to set that standard, I think you have to give it to everyone. And TJ Brody certainly deserves to be healthy scratched before Philipp Kurashev does. Also, why are we breaking up the fourth line of Athanasiou, Reichel, and Smith? Plus, why are we putting Lukas Reichel back at center? For the same reasons I just mentioned earlier with Philipp Kurashev. Lukas Reichel, is not a center. We've been down this road. He produced wonderfully on the wing, despite only getting 8 minutes and 21 seconds of ice time. Less ice time than he got against the San Jose Sharks, which is, I think, a little bit offensive. Plus, that trio obviously contributed both goals for the Blackhawks, and you're not going to keep them together because you want to scratch Philipp Kurashev, and now you have to move Andreas Athanasiou up there. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Moving Lukas Reichel to center too, we've been down this road. Why are we doing this again and playing him with Maroon and Smith, two guys with no speed that do not match his style? Luke Richardson is losing me with some of these decisions, Blackhawks fans. I'm not going to go nuclear here on the guy because we're only 6 games in, but I just don't agree with this lineup whatsoever. Ryan Donato still healthy scratched as well. Is this the 3rd or 4th game in a row for Donato? I don't know, but he's certainly not deserving of that. Ryan Donato has a goal this year. Ryan Donato was one of the more standout Blackhawks in the preseason. And again, I'll preface, I understand scratching him from time to time because we don't have anything long-term tied to him. And again, this season should all be about what puzzle pieces we have, figuring out what we have in the development of the few young guys we do have on the NHL roster. So I get scratching Donato from time to time, but 3 to 4 games in a row? I don't know. I really don't understand that personally, and I really don't understand a lot of these lineup decisions personally. But hey, I'm not the head coach. I'm not the head honcho making the crucial decisions behind the bench. We'll see how this winds up going for the Blackhawks here tonight, but certainly not my favorite lineup that Luke Richardson has ever put together. All right, there are my quick thoughts on the Blackhawks line jumbling tonight against Vancouver. Gonna take a quick break here, folks, but when I come back, I'll go over Lukas Reichel on the second power play unit and my 3 keys to victory. Oh, see, and there's the bad camera. That's why I didn't want to do that. All right, there are the quick thoughts. I got to talk to you all real quick about the fine folks over at FanDuel. To all my NFL fans out there, you can now start the season with a big return over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you also happen to place your bets. And how about the Chicago Bears, baby? They had their bye week, but now have a big tilt against the Washington Commanders. 4-2 are the Bears, hoping to keep their momentum going. And if you want to smash the Bears money line, take the over, under, the point spread for either side, be sure to go and check out FanDuel.com right now. And if you're not already signed up, go and create an account. And when you put $5 down, you'll get a free $200 worth of bonus bets guaranteed with America's #1 sportsbook. Again, that's FanDuel.com. When you put $5 down, you'll get $200 worth of bonus bets guaranteed. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a reminder again to please go and hit that like button, comment down below, and to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. And you can easily find the link to Locked On NHL down in the description, or simply search on YouTube or wherever you may be getting your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 2, a few other pieces of business to go over before the puck drops this evening at the United Center. Blackhawks have moved things around a little bit on their power play units, particularly the second power play unit. Nick Foligno still serving as the net front presence. Connor Bedard, Teuvo Teravainen, still the 2 guys at the dot. Tyler Bertuzzi in the bumper role. And then Seth Jones manning the point. Those are the 5 for the Hawks' top power play unit. The second power play unit, which has been a struggle not only for this team this year, but I can't even tell you the last time the Blackhawks had an effective second power play unit. But through the first 5 games, we've seen Craig Smith, Pat Maroon, Alec Martinez, Alex Vlasic, just guys that are not meant for the second power play unit. Pat Maroon is still out there in a net front presence role, which I really don't hate. If you're going to put him in a man advantage situation, you have to have him there. The real issue is you got to keep him away from the puck on zone entries because this guy can't move. He doesn't have any hands. He's not going to walk into the offensive zone with the puck. What he can do, though, is go and win you board battles and take up a lot of space in the crease and provide a good screen in front of the goaltender. So I don't hate Pat Maroon being there. However, there was no denying the Blackhawks needed more skill on the perimeter than what they were putting out there for their second power play unit initially. Taylor Hall, Andreas Athanasiou seem to be the two that are at the dots, which I like that better than what we've been going with. Certainly more skilled and qualified players, guys who actually look like they should be on a second power play unit. Lukas Reichel out there as well in the bumper role. Probably not going to get the puck a ton in that spot. However, I definitely just like to see him out there compared to the role he's been stuck having for the last year and a half. At least good on Luke Richardson for recognizing we need more help out there. And Lucas, for those people that are saying Lukas Reichel needs to earn a spot on the second power play unit, needs to earn a larger role, I think he earned that with his performance on Saturday night. He already has more points than Philipp Kurashev does this year. And then Alex Vlasic is still manning the point there. Personally, I'd like to see Wyatt Kaiser get some looks on the second power play unit. I don't know if he's ever going to be a power play guy here in Chicago or even at the NHL level. You know, Seth Jones, Kevin Korchinski tied on long-term, right? But I do think Wyatt Kaiser, yeah, he's obviously not as experienced as Alex Vlasic is, but I do think he's probably the better puck mover, the better offensive-minded player, and he was someone who played special teams, both units, throughout his college career at the University of Minnesota Duluth. So I'd like to see Kaiser probably back there more than Alex Vlasic. However, it probably really doesn't make much of a difference for the second unit. Hopefully they can at least get some momentum established here tonight in the short looks that they do get. As far as my 3 keys to victory for the Blackhawks in order to pick up 2 points tonight against the Vancouver Canucks, key number 1, Blackhawks fans, is to pick up where they left off against Buffalo. Those final 40 minutes were really good. Blackhawks did a lot of good things on both sides of the puck, right? As I mentioned on yesterday's episode, after allowing 12 scoring chances at 5-on-5 in the opening 20 minutes, they held Buffalo to just 5 of those in the final 40, only gave up 1 high danger chance in the last 2 periods. If they keep doing that, if they keep that going right from the opening puck drop, they're bound for a better result here tonight at the UC. My second key, Blackhawks fans, is for this team to win key faceoffs in the O&D zone. It's been a key, I think, on a couple of Blackhawks goals in particular this year, winning offensive zone draws. I know it's something that they're not really destined to be good at considering who they have at center, but Nick Foligno, Teuvo Teravainen, I thought both of those guys have done a really good job of stepping in and taking faceoffs for Connor Bedard, particularly when they're on the right-hand side or the left-hand side in the defensive zone, or mostly just in defensive zone situations because Luke Richardson doesn't trust Connor Bedard enough to win those yet. But if we can win a couple of those faceoffs to help get the puck out of harm's way on the PK or when Vancouver is pressing, and then on the other end, if we can win some key draws, when the power play starts to get an easy, established kind of settling in the formation, right? I think that would be really big for the Blackhawks, but they're going to have their they're going to be challenged going up against the 5th best face-off team in the entire league tonight here against Vancouver. If they can squeak out a couple big O-zone face-offs and D-zone face-offs, I really think those little things will help bode well for them. And then my third and final key to victory for the Blackhawks is to make Kevin Lankinen work. Don't make it an easy night for him in his return to the United Center. The Hawks have outshot their opponent in 3 consecutive games. Let's go and make it 4. If Kevin Lankinen has to make 31 or 32 stops here tonight, I like the Blackhawks' chances of bouncing back and getting back to 500 with a win against the Canucks. As far as my best bets go, unfortunately, when I do these things, what is really annoying, recording here in the morning, and I obviously want to get these previews out to all of you as early as possible, so you all can listen to them on your way to work or during your lunch rush or on your lunch break, the restaurant's lunch rush, or even when you're on your drive home and getting ready for puck drop. definitely want to get these out as early as possible. However, it prevents me from putting down point score bets as part of my parlays. But looking at the lines listed off of by FanDuel, again, use promo code. Don't even need to use a promo code. Just go and create an account at FanDuel.com to get $200 worth of bonus bets guaranteed. Canucks are currently the favorites at minus 184 on the money line. The Blackhawks, the underdogs, at plus 152. Vancouver minus 1.5 on the puck line is plus 140, while the Hawks plus 1.5 is minus 170. Over-under currently listed at 5.5, with the over being minus 134 and the under being plus 110. Looking at the favorite goal scorers, Besser leads the way at plus 165, JT Miller at plus 200, Elias Pettersson at plus 200, Garland and Bedard at plus 220, Jake DeBrusk at plus 240, Teuvo Teravainen at plus 280, Nick Foligno plus 300, Taylor Hall plus 300, and then Tyler Bertuzzi plus 320. And again, as a reminder for people out there that don't know what those numbers mean, if you see a plus, that means if you were to put $100 down, Connor Bedard is plus 220. If you put $100 down on Bedard to score a goal, you'll get paid out $220 if that were to cash. And on the other end of that, for example, the Canucks are minus 184 on the money line. That means it would take $184 on a bet to earn you $100 worth of profit. Just a little bit of a heads up for anyone out there not familiar with the gambling terminology. My play of the night, Blackhawks fans. Again, I am going to be in attendance with a couple of my buddies for the second time in the Hawks' first 3 games at the UC. Haven't seen a Connor Bedard goal at the UC thus far. I think the kids do. And the last time I went with this group of buddies was last fall against the Florida Panthers. Connor Bedard scored a goal, I want to say, in a 5-2 or 4-2 win for the Chicago Blackhawks. So my play of the night, Connor Bedard, anytime goal, parlayed with Nick Foligno, 2+ shots. They keep giving him good odds for this, and he continues to play on the top line in the top power play unit. So I'm going to continue to take it. Bedard, anytime goal, parlayed with Foligno, 2 or more shots is plus 407. I think that's a really, really good number for this Blackhawks game here tonight. So there is everything you need to know ahead of tonight's puck drop with Vancouver. One final break to take on today's episode, but don't go anywhere because I still have to get into some interesting Blackhawks team statistics through their opening 6 games. But first, real quick, I do need to talk to you all about Indeed. We're all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, but match with Indeed. And if you need to hire, then you need Indeed, because Indeed is the best hiring and matching platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates in an instant. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And one of the things that I personally love about Indeed is that it makes hiring all in one place so simple and so easy, because you can skip out on the countless job sites that ask you unnecessary information and unnecessary questions and still doesn't wind up leading you anywhere. Instead, go and join the more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent in an instant. And listeners and viewers of the show, you'll get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon. Need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Segment 3, before I wrap up today's episode, I did want to be sure to go over some interesting analytical data posted by JFresh Hockey on X over the weekend. Highly recommend you go and follow JFresh if you don't already. Great analytical numbers, great insight on a lot of players. I subscribe to his hockey cards. I think they're really cool and really informative, and also I really think it helps with defensemen in particular, because you get some of the numbers. You know, it's hard to quantify exactly how well a defenseman has been playing. JFresh Hockey and his analytics and his breakdowns and his hockey cards and everything really help kind of quantify that into something you can actually talk about. He's been someone I've recommended on the show for many, many years. Make sure to go and follow JFresh Hockey on X. But over the weekend, JFresh dropped some really interesting numbers on every NHL team through their opening, 4, 5, 6, 7 games of the season. But for the Blackhawks in particular, some really noteworthy statistics that I think kind of are synonymous with what we've learned about this team, what we feel like we've learned through the opening 6 games, and kind of the big takeaways that I had from the Blackhawks through their opening 4-game road trip to kick things off this year. I know they've played 2 games since then, but I feel like the themes and kind of everything that we've learned about this team thus far has really stayed the same over the last 2 at the UC. The first one that JFresh, the first set of data that he posted was the 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage for every NHL team. So this is the expected goals percentage you have at even strength this year. And the Blackhawks are 14th in the NHL at 51%. That's just what you want to be in. You want to be in that upper half of the league, above 50%. For the Blackhawks to be 14th, I think is really, really notable. It tells you that they are playing a fine brand of hockey. However, when going through some more of these data sets, it's pretty clear that that's happening because of the defense. Because when you look at the 5-on-5 expected goals for per 60 minutes, aka team offense, the Blackhawks are 26th out of 32 teams at just 2.21 expected goals for per 60 minutes. So still, again, kind of lacking that secondary firepower to go and help Connor Bedard to make this a legitimately threatening offense. That's kind of the one clear weakness the Blackhawks really do have with this team, particularly this forward group, is there's just not a lot of game changers, not a lot of game breakers, and also not a ton of speed as a result of bringing in so many veterans who are more so known for their defensive side of things. But that has worked out very well for the Blackhawks in terms of 5-on-5 expected goals against, aka team defense, because the Blackhawks are 6th in the entire NHL, allowing just 2.21 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That is super notable. And again, that goes to show you, I think, what this team is capable of defensively. They could really be a solid, hard team to play against that just makes you grind it out against them. Hawks haven't given up many easy goals through these opening 6 games, and that's a style that at least us fans can back and can kind of respect. Love to see the defense really kind of becoming the life of this Blackhawks team early on in the season. The only teams the Hawks have a lower expected goals against per 60 minutes are the Minnesota Wild, the LA Kings, Carolina Hurricanes, Winnipeg Jets, and Calgary Flames. 6 teams that are all really known for their defensive abilities. For the Blackhawks to be right in the thick of it with those squads, that's what I absolutely love to see. Next up, we have goals saved above expected. So which team's goaltenders have been performing really well here early on? And the Hawks are high in this category as well. They're 8th at plus 1.8. So hat tip to not only Peter Mrazek, who's been really good, but Arvid Soderblom, I've thought has been pretty solid in his opening 2 starts as well. Probably 2 starts that were better than any of the starts he put up last year, right? Like even in the loss to the Buffalo Sabres, I don't really know if you can blame him for any of those goals. The first one, maybe he's got to come up with that save. It was still a defensive breakdown by the Blackhawks. Second goal for the Sabres was a crazy pinball bounce off a couple of skates in front. Nothing he can do about that. And then the third one was a couple of lackluster defensive turnovers, mostly by TJ Brody. So Arvid Soderblom, got to give him a little bit of credit for stepping in nicely as Laurent Brossoit has not been able to return just yet. Last noteworthy statistic here for the Blackhawks, special teams goals for percentage, which is power play plus penalty kill goals for. The Hawks are 3rd in the NHL, behind only New Jersey and Winnipeg. So the special teams, even though the power play hasn't been consistent, the penalty kill has been good, and I think the power play struck for 5 goals through the opening 6 games, albeit I think all of them have come in a 2-game stretch against Edmonton and San Jose, the Hawks' 2 wins of the year. So would like to see the power play be a little bit better and more consistent, but still, it's turned into if the Blackhawks can continue to allow their special teams to be a weapon, gosh, that is going to be such a huge part in them taking that next step this year. If they can play good defense, if they can get above average goaltending and they're good on the special teams, this is a Blackhawks team that legitimately, not to get over my head here, if they take care of business in all those categories, they could be an 80-point team this year because those are recipes that lead to wins. You'll just stumble into wins sometimes if you play good defense, you get good goaltending, and your special teams is good. You're going to fall into some wins. So only 6 games, but really impressive analytics here from the Blackhawks in some of these categories, particularly the 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 6th in the NHL, 8th in goals saved above expected, and 3rd in special teams goals for percentage. Things you love to see from the Blackhawks. Hopefully they can keep that up, and hopefully they'll produce in those areas that'll lead to 2 more points here this evening against the Vancouver Canucks. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcast, and to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. You can find me on X at Jack Bushman too, but be sure to go and follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey to get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.